Welcome back to the Extra Point.
Hello everybody and welcome to this new episode here of The Extra Point. And today we're going to talk about a local quarterback that has spent 15 years in the NFL, has won multiple championships, multiple championship MVPs, and retired in 2019. So now there were 5 years past that. That means he is eligible for the first time to be voted into the NFL Hall of Fame, which has in itself, especially amongst local sports fans and many fans as well, become a controversy. And here today on The Extra Point, we are here to settle that. So we have three people that say that Eli Manning is indeed a Hall of Famer, whereas on my left side, we have three people that say Eli Manning is not a Hall of Famer. On my right side, I got John, Miles, and Michael. And on my left side, I got Nolan, Frank, and Benicio. So guys, a little bit of an opening statement from all of you.
I feel as though that Eli should be he should be in the Hall of Fame because he has 2 championships, he has 2 MVP championships, and he's not the worst QB in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's backing up what he said. You know, we did the research. We saw the names of quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame, and we're looking at like how there's no way if he was inducted in the Hall of Fame, he would be not obviously like top tier quarterback in the NFL Hall of Fame, but he will be up there with way past some of these other inducted quarterbacks.
I think when you talk about players and Hall of Fame and legacy, it goes beyond the numbers, because while you can win some MVPs and you can win some cool accolades like passing, what really defines a player and what remembers you as is what you did in the championship games, the big games, and what you did in the postseason when it really was on the limelight. And what he did in the postseason against big-time teams, the 18-0 Patriots, the comebacks, the big stats he put up, I think there's a real argument to say he is in the Hall of Fame.
So let's move it over to the other side here.
So, like, when you talk about Eli and winning the championships, a lot of the question is, did he win it or the defense win it? Because you look at the scores, last time I checked, I don't think the Patriots scored more than 25 points in either of the games. That can help Eli out a lot in those games, especially when he has all those weapons that he had. I think, maybe the defense may be more important than Eli was in those games.
So before I start, I just want to say this is my topic for my critical discourse class. Shout out Fresh from Cena if you're watching. But I argue that Eli Manning should not be in the Hall of Fame. And so you say that there's quarterbacks that are worse than them in the Hall of Fame. Well, these quarterbacks that you're coming up with were quarterbacks from they were the best quarterbacks of their time. Eli Manning was played in probably the greatest quarterback generation ever, arguably. You had Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and all these guys were far better than Eli Manning. And if you look at it, Eli Manning never made an all-first team. He was never the best quarterback at his position for a year ever. And that the Hall of Fame is supposed to be the best of the best. Eli Manning is not the best of the best.
I would just like to build off of that. Not only was there never a season where Eli was considered the best quarterback in the world, but he was never really considered a top 5 quarterback in the world. He only finished top 10 in passer rating once. He never finished top 10 in touchdown passes. And when you go beyond stats, ask the players who played against them. Ask some guys who played the game. Marcus Spears said that when we were going up against Eli Manning, we never game planned like we would for a Hall of Fame quarterback. And Deion Sanders said a Hall of Fame quarterback is defined as a player that changes the way the opposing team has to play. So according to a guy who played against him, he wasn't playing against a Hall of Famer with Eli.
And one thing I want to add is, because we were talking about his QBR and everything, He only has an 82.7. Matthew Stafford's is higher than him. Is Matthew Stafford a Hall of Famer? I know he's still playing, but a lot of people kind of put him in the same level as Eli. As is he a Hall of Famer or not? But with Stafford, a lot of people lean towards no. But he has a higher QBR than Eli.
I'll start off with the points about defense and teams, because both years the Giants defense has been ranked in like the 20s. Both years, yes, they turned it up in the playoffs, but that's what every single team does. And you know, for some of these games, especially in the 08, he had to go on a game-winning drive. You don't have your defense score those points. You have to go do it, and he did it. He made the clutch throws and like the clutch plays, and obviously he didn't have amazing weapons. David Tyree, he's not a superstar. He made that one catch. Mario Manningham, he's not this amazing player.
That was the luckiest catch in NFL history, by the way.
He still did it, and also Eli had to get out of a sack to even make that throw. Victor Cruz was a good weapon for him, and obviously Odell, and we all see how Odell was once he left the Giants. Not that great after all these quarterbacks.
I want to add that he beat one of the greats in the championship. He beat Tom Brady twice, and the fact is we consider Tom Brady the GOAT, most of us. And the fact that he beat him twice shows that when the game mattered, when the game mattered and when it was big games, he stepped up when he needed to most.
But Nick Foles beat him. Does that make him the GOAT? Patrick Mahomes beat him. No, he didn't. Never mind. But Nick Foles still beat him.
I wasn't
don't see
saying
him in the
that.
GOAT debate.
I wasn't saying Eli was the GOAT. I was just saying that.
Or I don't see him in the Hall of Fame debate. That's what I meant to say.
Okay.
I think the thing with Eli Manning is, like you said, that may have been a lucky throw, but guess what? That throw was put in a position where the receiver was going to catch it or nobody was going to catch it. And in that position, under that pressure against that good of a team, to make that throw under the duress he was under, I think speaks about the clutch gene he had. Yes, a defense is great, but the quarterback still got to score. He's still got to go down the field and make those tough plays. I think when you talk about Matthew Stafford, yes, Matthew Stafford had a great playoff run, but I think the difference with Eli Manning is the team he beat. I think the Patriots were 18-0. The Patriots were considered this team that was unbeatable at the time, and he came in and did what many people believe he couldn't do because they were the lowest seed wild card coming in. They not only beat Tom Brady, they went against Brett Favre, they knocked him out. Aaron Rodgers, they knocked him out. All the top quarterbacks you named, and yet he still gets mentioned with them.
And you want to talk about how Stafford had a great run in the playoffs. Can we even just argue that Eli had great runs in those playoffs? Because outside of those two championship runs, he's 0-4 in the playoffs. Outside of the championship seasons, he hasn't won a single playoff game.
Well, I mean, everyone that's watched the 2016 wild card would know that the receivers were a heavily factor of why they lost that game, dropping passes that should have been caught, and that they could have scored and probably won. And one point that I missed out I wanted to make, you want to talk about defenses winning a quarterback your championship, then you got to look at his older brother Peyton, who's arguably top 3 quarterback all time. He played garbage in all 4, got his second one solely because of his defense, because he was terrible that whole year.
Peyton has the stats to back up his Hall of Fame resume.
Yeah, but when we talk about the defenses and championships, his carried him more than people say that Eli was carried by his.
Yes, but Peyton had a lot of losses that fell on the defense. Just look at that game with Raheem Moore against the Ravens. He had that other game against the Saints where Drew Brees dominated. Yes, he did throw a bad pass to Tracy Porter, but the defense could do nothing to stop Drew Brees in that game. And on top of that, like Frank said, Peyton's stats were just otherworldly in the regular season. He has the single-season record for touchdown throws, and then he set the original record for touchdown throws back in 2004, a 5-time MVP, 7-time All-Pro. So the gap between Peyton and Eli is just astronomical, and it's not really a debate on who's the better brother. But when you look at Eli, he just wasn't a superstar quarterback. The reason the Giants won those 2 was because of their defense. That defense shut down an offense with Tom Brady and Randy Moss, and that is the reason why they pulled off the greatest upset in football history.
Well, that's how you win those games. Your offense scores the points, your defense shuts them down. That's how you can make that argument about every single winning team that won that game.
I want to bring back an argument that you guys brought up earlier, saying Eli Manning beat the GOAT twice in the big game. Like, yeah, but like if Jamarcus Russell beat Tom Brady twice in the big game, would you consider him Hall of Famer?
I don't think it's that cut and simple. I also feel like it's how it was done. It wasn't like he just went in there, the defense shut him out, and it was like they didn't need to really put up any points on the board. Eli Manning on the last drives had to go down and score. It wasn't like, oh, he was just sitting on the sideline the whole game. He made those clutch drives in those clutch plays. Yeah, you can name any quarterback and say, oh, well, if he won a this and that. With Eli, it's not that cut and dry. It's about how he did it. How every game they were underdogs, how no one thought that this team could do what they did, and yet they did it. A lot of those teams, like you're talking about the Eagles, that team was a team outside of Nick Foles. Carson Wentz was on the MVP season before that happened. That team was legit.
But now I have a question for you guys. You take away those 2 seasons that he won the championship, who is he? Because you can look at Peyton. You can take away his championships. Like we said, he still has the numbers. We can take away 2 championships of Tom Brady. Still easy Hall of Famer. You can even look at Aaron Rodgers, who only has 1. Take that away, he's still a Hall of Famer. If you take away the rings from Eli, is he still a Hall of Famer?
I think the argument will be very different without the championships, but he's still in the top 10 of passing yards. He's still in the top 10 of passing touchdowns. And what's his? Do we know how high is the QBRs?
Yeah, he has 57,203 passing yards, which is 7th all time in the NFL, with also 20 franchise records.
He also got the Walter Payton Man of the Year in 2016. He had a lot of consecutive starts, which only got ruined because of their head coach at the time was terrible and made that awful mistake. Other on that, he would have probably would never miss a start in his whole career. And also one of my it's not obviously the main criteria for the Hall of Fame, but one criteria I like to look at is if someone's telling you the entire history of the NFL and you're mentioned in it, that makes you a case for the Hall of Fame. Ever since he was drafted, he was a big storyline because of all the drama when he was drafted, and obviously beating the undefeated Patriots like that. You can't explain the history of the NFL without mentioning Eli Manning.
I think that you guys have a different definition of Hall of Famer than I do, because I look at Hall of Famer as a player that has the stats to back it up. And we look at Eli Manning, oh yeah, he did this, he did that, but like the stats, yeah, he's 7th all time in passing, but that's because of longevity, and pretty much every quarterback around him were quarterbacks from his generation. This generation of football is completely different than we saw 20 years ago. You're not going to see a lot of quarterbacks, except for maybe a few exceptions, that are on the all-time passing list from 20 years ago. Every single quarterback that's on that passing list was from Eli Manning's era, and they were all better than him statistically. And I look at that, and is Eli Manning a good player? Absolutely. I think he had a great career, 15 seasons as a starter with the Giants, something like that. But his stats aren't Hall of Fame worthy. He finished with a 500 record as a starter in his career. There's only 2 other quarterbacks that have finished 500 or below in their career and are in the Hall of Fame. It's, I think Sonny Jurgensen and Joe Namath, Joe Namath, by the way, is not a Hall of Famer, and he's only in the Hall of Fame because of that win in one of his big games. But, he's just not – I don't define Eli Manning as a Hall of Famer. I don't.
I think if also you can make the reverse argument, because let's say, for example, there was a quarterback who did win 2 MVPs, but he couldn't do anything in the playoffs. Like, he just kept choking. Would he still be a Hall of Famer in your eyes?
If he has the stats to back it up, absolutely.
So he can – okay.
That's Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
I'd put Lamar Jackson in the Hall of Fame. He has multiple MVPs.
I don't know
Not
yet.
yet.
I don't know yet
By the
about
end of his
that.
career, I think he's going to be an easy Hall of Famer.
Well, then we probably do have 2 separate things, because, it's like, that's great, but if you don't win Super Bowls and you don't win playoffs, especially for the team's perspective, then
Do you think Dan Marino is a Hall of Famer?
yeah.
But he
Dan
didn't
Marino
win.
is.
He didn't win in the playoffs.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is also you can make the reverse argument. I'm saying it on the reverse end. But we can talk about stats. Let's bring up the stats of him in the playoffs. He averaged 300 passing yards per game during his 2 championship runs.
Which was 2 seasons.
Right. That's still really, really good. Not every quarterback is going to go into the playoffs and do that. He also averaged 15 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, which shows the QBR you're talking about. He was much, much better when it mattered most.
I don't think you're a Hall of Famer based on 2 seasons. I just don't see it that way.
Real quick, cut you guys off. We're kind of running out of time here. Just quick final thoughts.
Eli Manning's not a Hall of Famer, period.
I feel like his impact to the game matters also. Because, like, we could talk all about stats, but impact is very crucial too.
So
I feel like his 2 victories in the big game were just more of a team effort. They're not reflective of him as an individual player. So those aren't really going to sway my opinion of him as a Hall of Famer.
I believe he's Hall of Famer. He has RB Hall of Fame stats. He never had amazing teams around him, and he was still able to do what he did.
So nonetheless, this is, I think, a debate that might only last a year, but also may last a lot longer depending on how voting goes over this first ballot year that he's on the ballot and continuing. But that's going to do it here for this debate. Guys, thank you for hopping on. Appreciate your time. And stay tuned as we're going to talk a little bit about fantasy football.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the final segment of Extra Point this week. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined with the fantasy football gurus themselves. I'm here with Adam, John, and Frank. And today we're going to be breaking down some sent-in trades by Hawk TV's very own members, giving y'all some fantasy football advice, get the season started off right. Trades make your teams, they make champions champions. If you are a good general manager and you're cooking up some good trades every week, those are the people who win championships. You got to stay active. So we're going to start things off right away. We got an interesting one, fellas. We got an interesting one. So I know it sounds a little crazy at first, but we got C.J. Stroud flat out for Puka Nacua. What are we thinking?
I don't think that that's a great trade. I think wide receiver value is a little higher than quarterback, especially since C.J. Stroud isn't necessarily the best fantasy quarterback this year. Now, if that was the case, I think that you could make that argument, but I think with Cooper Kupp dealing with a bunch of injuries.
I think that whoever gets Puka probably wins that deal because, yeah, Puka's is out for 5 to 7 weeks, but C.J. Stroud has no rushing upside as a quarterback. I think there's a lot of factors here, like what receivers does the one team have, what receivers does the team that's getting, what quarterback does the team that's getting Stroud have. I feel like Stroud just doesn't have the upside, but Puka Nacua, when he comes back, I think could be explosive, and that could be a massive acquisition.
I think it all comes down to I think this is something that I don't see a winner of right away. I think it's going to really come down to in the long run of when Nacua comes back, when he's 100%. Obviously, it's a banged-up Rams receiving core now, obviously. There's no Kupp. Higbee's still out with that injury he suffered last postseason. So when he comes back, there is potentially the chance he could be their really only major target. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if he's 100% and if he gets the amount of targets that it looks like he could get.
I definitely see like the argument on every side, but ultimately I'm going to give it to the person who's getting Puka. You might think it's kind of crazy. He's on IR right now, but just the value, exactly like what you said, like the value of having a great wide receiver in your lineup on a week-to-week basis, especially with the injuries that the Rams have, is just too valuable for me to pass up, especially because like there's so many good quarterbacks this year off waivers. Like I just picked off Sam Darnold in like 3 different leagues, and he's been in on a heater. And realistically, he could start over a lot of guys right now. So I'm going to give it to Puka Nacua. But anyways, we got another trade sent in. We got David Montgomery for James Cook and T. Higgins.
Oh my God.
Whoever's
getting Montgomery is getting absolutely fleeced.
I agree.
Because James Cook, first of all, is better than David Montgomery on his own. And then you throw T. Higgins in there, and like, oh my God, like I don't know who this guy thinks he is. Like that's terrible. Whoever's getting Montgomery, red flags all over the place.
I agree. I think it's flat out a bad trade. I mean, James Cook has put up better numbers. Now, Dave Montgomery's having a good season, no doubt about it, but you're getting also T. Higgins. Now, granted, he's only had 5 points, I believe, so far this season, but
he's only played one
right,
game.
that's what I'm saying. So he's going to get
Monday
better.
was his first game.
Coming back from injury, too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, still a lot of upside there.
Yeah, and I mean, not to mention, like, of course, David Montgomery's good, but he's always going to be splitting carries with Jahmyr Gibbs, and that's not going to stop anytime soon unless, God forbid, one of them get injured. So, and with how good James Cook has been, like, he is the focal point of that Bills offense outside of Josh Allen. So he's going to keep getting the rock. He's going to keep getting fed. And now that the Bills actually have a run game, I mean, and not to mention, he's also a very good receiving back as well, has some receiving upside.
Yeah, I've talked about this with a number of different people, and I'm very high on James Cook, especially because now, it gives the Bills a running game. And it also, even when they did not necessarily have a great running back, they were always one of the best run-blocking teams in the NFL. So I think getting Cook is a good deal. And I think Gibbs might actually be more of the RB1 now in Detroit over Montgomery.
I agree, 100%.
I think all three might even be able to agree with me on that.
Yeah.
So I think, that's a steal. And obviously, Higgins is he's playing for something this year. Obviously, he's playing on that franchise tag. So I think this season just means a lot more to him as well.
Without a doubt. Yeah, T. Higgins also has some we've been talking about how good James Cook is. We didn't even mention T. Higgins and the upside that he has as the wide receiver 2 for the Bengals, especially because they're going to be passing the ball a lot because that defense stinks flat out. And they just got cooked by rookie Jaden Daniels for, 38-something points?
37 points and 2 incompletions.
Exactly, yeah. So that defense is going to struggle all year. They're going to be passing the ball a lot. Moving on, we got 2 more trades for you guys. We got Tyjae Spears and Mike Gesicki for Sam Laporta. Now, this one's interesting.
Yeah.
This one's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to start things off and say you might think it's crazy undersell for Sam Laporta. I'm really feeling Mike Gesicki this year. I'm going to go with take that trade as of right now, especially if, let's say you're, on a team that's kind of, tapering out and you need someone that's going to be good right away. Mike Gesicki's upside is incredible. People forget how dominant of a tight end he was on the Dolphins when he was, actually playing and was getting the ball a lot, in the first years with, Adam Gase and Flores, something that Adam Gase actually did good for a change. He was fantastic. So if he keeps getting the rock in Cincinnati with Joe Burrow throwing him the ball, especially with Sam Laporta had the injury concern, got carted off, I think he's okay. But even then, he just hasn't been getting targets.
I actually disagree. And Ian, I know you submitted this trade. Don't do it. I just don't think Mike Gesicki was good, but now T. Higgins is back in that Cincinnati receiving. He's the receiving option there, and I think Gesicki's volume goes down as a result. And Tyjae Spears is a backup running back. Tony Pollard has won the starting job in Tennessee, so you're basically giving up Sam Laporta. Yes, he's injured, but he was the TE1 last year as a rookie. I know he struggled to start the season, but whoever is offering this to you is trying to fleece you. Please, Ian, do not do it. Don't listen to Dean either. He's trying to take advantage of you.
Yeah, Spears hasn't been what I thought he was. In the beginning of the season, I thought he would potentially take over Pollard, but he didn't. I personally wouldn't do it. I don't think there's enough value. I think Sam Laporta has the bigger name, and I think he's a bigger part of that Lions offense either way.
Now, I do want to clarify to clear my name. I am in Ian's league, but I would still do that trade no matter what. I do want to clarify just to clear my name here. I am in the league, but I also love Mike Gesicki, and I think his upside is incredible this year.
Ian, Dean just said you're in the same league, and Frank is your self-declared fantasy advisor now? Go with your
I may or may not be getting financial assistance.
Financial compensation out of this?
I cannot confirm or deny.
Okay, we won't confirm that on this show, but there's a reason why he's your fantasy advisor, and I trust him. Go with it. I think when we look at it, Laporta, he's been one of the young, promising tight ends, and we look at Gesicki. Obviously, he's going to lose a lot of targets now because they have 3 really good receivers. They got Chase, Higgins, and then a guy that's really been up and kind of on the rise is their second-year receiver, Andre Iosivas. He leads the team with 3 touchdowns, and I think he might be a steal that people I think should go out and get in their fantasy leagues if he's on the waiver wire.
Interesting. I mean, it could be that you know what's funny? You actually mentioned that. I've seen him on the waivers in so many different ones of my leagues, and I've been so close to picking him up each and every time.
Believe it or not, I would do it.
And he's getting a lot of snaps.
Yeah, no, he's getting a lot of targets. I mean,
he's taking over the Boyd role, and I think it's going to be interesting next year if Higgins leaves. Obviously, there's still issues with Jamar's contract as well, where he could be in a couple years.
Definitely. We're going to wrap things up. One more trade done and performed by yours truly, but I want to hear what you guys think about it. So in this trade, I'm giving up Devonta Smith, Brian Thomas, and Aaron Jones, a hefty package, but hear me out, for Calvin Ridley and Jamar Chase.
I helped you facilitate this trade.
You did.
I think you did good. Your running back core in that league is very, very strong, and getting a solidified wide receiver 1 in Jamar Chase is massive, especially in a league like that where it's only 8 people. Having a strong receiving core matters a lot, and I think even though you gave up Aaron Jones and Devonta Smith, which is kind of a lot, your receiving core was weak, and you got Jamar Chase. That's a big acquisition.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think a lot of this is also team-oriented. You got to
Yeah,
have, it
100%.
depends what you
100%,
have, but Jamar Chase is having a great season. Joe Burrow's going to get him the ball. T. Higgins coming back from injury. I like it. I always think it's important to have a wide receiver number one.
Given what Frank said, you made it sound like that you have a major problem, and that is your receiving core.
Oh, my receivers were bad.
Yeah, it was like
You,
Mike
it
Evans.
It was like
So
Malik
you know what you-
Neighbors
But
and
Neighbors
a
is
whole
good,
lot of
though.
nobody. Yeah.
so you know what
number
you
one.
did? You went out there, you had a problem, you solved the problem.
Yeah.
And that's all you really want to do, and that's if you do anything with that in a trade, to me it's a win.
Yeah, I mean, listen, had to go out there, had to go take the risk. I think it's worth it. Listen, that is how champions are made. You got to go out there, you got to go take the risks. You got to go trade Sam Laporta for Mike Gesicki because that's what because that's what everyone's saying. And also, real quick before we wrap up, every trade we did involved the Cincinnati Bengals in some
Yeah.
way. I find that kind of funny.
Higgins,
So
Gesicki, yeah.
yeah, a lot of Bengals coverage. So any Cincinnati Bengals fans that may be listening, there you go, some Bengals content for you. But that is going to wrap up our segment today. Hopefully the fantasy gurus gave you some good advice, motivated you guys to go get out there and do some trades. And that is also going to conclude our episode of Extra Point. Take it easy, and we will see you guys next week.